Welcome to our deep dive today. We're exploring the story of Sarah Kiribona Nyondo, a Ugandan woman who overcame intense childhood trauma. She's now an advocate for orphans, and the article we're looking at is from the Monitor publication in Uganda, published on January 1st, 2025. It's really both heartbreaking and inspiring.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible how personal stories like this can really shed light on these complex issues, like mental health challenges faced by orphans in Uganda.
Yeah, and it makes it so real, right? I mean, one thing that really struck me in the article was Kiribo talking about how some relatives actually said that she should have been buried with her mother because of her appearance. And she was orphaned, before her first birthday. So to face that kind of rejection on top of that loss.
Oh, absolutely. And at such a young age, too. To be a child already grappling with such a profound loss, and then to face that kind of rejection,
Yeah.
it really sets the stage for, deep-seated trauma.
And it didn't stop there, right? Later, her aunt transferred her to a new school in Kampala, even demoted her a grade.
Wow. I can't imagine how isolating and disheartening that must have been for a child to navigate a new environment and then also be told they're not good enough, that they're somehow behind.
It just feeds those feelings of inadequacy that often stem from early trauma. And then there's this detail in the article that during tests she'd write father, mother, brother, sister as the answer to every question.
Oh, wow, that is so poignant. It just speaks to that deep yearning for connection, for a sense of belonging, which is so fundamental. And when those needs aren't met, it can have a profound impact on their mental and emotional well-being.
Absolutely. And sadly, things escalated from there. She ended up going to live with her elder brother, but his wife subjected her to physical and emotional abuse.
It's tragic how vulnerable children can be, especially when they lack that strong support system. And, in Kiribo's case, this abuse just added another layer of trauma on top of her already fragile emotional state.
Yeah, it's like she couldn't catch a break. And this is when she started having this really intense, violent thoughts, even planned to harm her family members. And there's this chilling description in the article about her slaughtering a chicken and how she felt a sense of relief when the blood splattered on her face.
It's disturbing, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's so important to understand it within the context of her trauma. This wasn't about, enjoying violence. This was a young girl trying to cope with this overwhelming amount of pain and anger. Her emotions had reached a boiling point, and this act, in a very tragically twisted way, offered a moment of release.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that untreated trauma can manifest in such unpredictable ways.
Absolutely. And it really underscores the importance of recognizing the signs of trauma in children and providing them with the support to process those experiences in a healthy way. In the article, Dr. Victoria Nwenja, a nurse at Sea Care Uganda, she emphasizes that Kiribo's brain was likely overwhelmed, struggling to process the loss and rejection, especially without anyone to confide in.
And tragically, she did try to end her life multiple times, swallowing glass, ingesting poison.
It's just heartbreaking, but it also speaks to the incredible strength of her will to survive. The article describes this internal battle, a voice urging her to live and another pushing her toward death. And in a way, developing multiple personalities as she did can be seen as a coping mechanism, a way to compartmentalize the pain and try to regain some control.
She's dealing with all this internal turmoil, and then she gets pregnant at a young age. She thought it might be a way out, but the father abandoned her.
Yeah, it's a pattern we see sadly too often. Vulnerable young women seeking love and stability in all the wrong places, only to face even greater challenges. And, as a single mother now grappling with the added responsibility of a child, those pre-existing mental health struggles only intensified. The article even mentions her struggles with thoughts of harming her own son, what's termed maternal filicide.
It's a truly devastating consequence of untreated trauma. You know how it can ripple outward and impact not just the individual, but also their relationships with others? But thankfully, her story doesn't end there. Sharing her experiences on social media proved to be a turning point.
Yeah, it was brave of her,
Yeah.
making herself vulnerable like that on social media.
Yeah.
And it really did open the door to healing. A friend saw her post and intervened, took her to Budabika Hospital where she could finally get professional help.
It's a powerful reminder that even these small acts of kindness can make a huge difference sometimes.
Right.
We never really know what someone might be going through, and just listening or offering a helping hand can be life-changing.
Absolutely. And for Kiribo, it led to her connecting with those mental health professionals, receiving counseling, starting the journey of healing. The article also mentions her finding comfort in prayer and support from her community. So it really highlights that recovery can be multifaceted.
Yeah, and what's amazing is that she takes this experience and channels it into something so positive. She establishes Heart Smile Uganda, this organization dedicated to helping other orphans facing similar challenges.
It's a beautiful example of turning pain into purpose.
Mm.
And it really speaks to her resilience,
Mm.
not just surviving, but thriving after such profound trauma. And the work that Heart Smile Uganda is doing is so crucial because, as we've seen with Caribou, the impacts of early childhood trauma can be really long-lasting and far-reaching.
Yeah. The article mentions they provide counseling, educational support, and even skills training. It's a holistic approach to recognizing that mental well-being is connected to so many other aspects of life.
Absolutely. It's not just about addressing the trauma, but empowering these young people to build a brighter future. Dr. Augustin Mutal, a clinical psychologist who's quoted in the article, he emphasizes that accepting one's situation is the first step towards finding a way out.
That makes a lot of sense. Acknowledging the pain, but also recognizing that it doesn't have to define you.
Right. And Dr. Mutal also stresses the importance of finding trusted individuals to confide in. Having that safe space, to express your feelings and be heard without judgment can be incredibly healing.
It's about creating that sense of belonging and connection,
Yeah.
which was so lacking in Kirabo's early life. But, thinking about the bigger picture here, are there specific types of psychological distress that are particularly prevalent among orphans in Uganda?
Yeah, absolutely. The article mentions a 2020 study from Science Direct, and they found that orphans are especially susceptible to long-term depression, anger, anxiety, feelings of sadness, and isolation, all stemming from that unresolved loss and lack of a stable and loving family structure.
It's heartbreaking to think of these children carrying that burden.
And it's even more concerning when you think about what happens if it's left untreated. These mental health challenges can lead to a whole cascade of other problems.
Like what? What kind of consequences are we talking about?
Well, for one thing, their physical health can be impacted. They might experience headaches or stomach issues, sleep disturbances. The mind-body connection is powerful.
And I imagine it would be really hard to focus on education and future prospects as well.
You're exactly right. The study specifically mentions reduced economic and academic productivity as a common outcome. And sadly, it also highlights an increased risk of both being a victim of crime and engaging in criminal activity.
It's a pretty bleak picture, but it also underscores how urgent the need is for organizations like Heart Smile Uganda. They're not just offering therapy or a safe space, they're providing a lifeline, a chance for these children to break free from this cycle of suffering.
I think that's a key takeaway here. Kiribo's story, as tragic as it is, also offers a message of hope. It demonstrates that early intervention and ongoing support can make a real difference. By addressing these mental health challenges head-on, we're not just improving individual lives, but potentially preventing a whole host of negative outcomes down the line.
It's like a ripple effect, but in a positive way. And it goes back to Kirabo's own resilience. She's living proof that even after going through something unimaginable, healing and growth are still possible.
And that's a message we need to share. While her story is unique, the challenges she faced are sadly all too common. But there is hope, and there is help available. So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I think it's crucial to shift our focus to action. What can communities do to better support children who've experienced trauma? How do we create a world where stories like Kirabo's, while inspiring, become less frequent?
It really is the big question. How do we go from just awareness to actual action? Kirabo's story shows how powerful human connection can be. It was her friend who saw that post online and took that step to get her help.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just about noticing, reaching out. Like, we could all be more aware of the people around us, especially kids. They might not always know how to ask for help.
So it starts with paying attention. But then what? What can we actually do to create more support for children who've experienced trauma?
Well, education's a big part of it. We got to break down the stigma around mental health. We teach kids about physical health, right? Nutrition and exercise. But when it comes to mental well-being, there's still so much shame.
Yeah, it's like we think mental health struggles are a sign of weakness or something to hide.
Exactly. And so we have to start by educating everyone, adults and kids, about what trauma is, how to see the signs, and how to be supportive and not judgmental. What if schools taught kids about things like emotional regulation and coping mechanisms, and how to ask for help?
That would be amazing. And it shouldn't stop at schools.
Right.
What about training for people in the community? Faith leaders, healthcare workers, giving them the tools to recognize and help with mental health needs.
It's about building a network, right? A safety net to catch these kids before they fall through the cracks. And of course, we need to talk about access to professional help. Therapy is so important, but it's just not an option for a lot of people, especially in rural areas.
So we need more resources,
Yeah,
more funding. Mental health services have to be available for everyone.
definitely. And not just available, but affordable, too. Therapy can be really expensive, and a lot of families just can't afford it. We need policies that make mental health care accessible to everyone, no matter their income or where they live.
So that's on a bigger level. But what about individually? What can people in their own communities do?
Well, you can volunteer. Organizations like Heart Smile Uganda are always looking for help. They need people for tutoring, mentoring, fundraising, all sorts of things.
Even just donating clothes or books can help. And if you can't donate time or money, you can always spread awareness.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Tell people Kirabo's story. Talk to your friends and family about why mental health is important. Encourage them to get involved, too. It's all about creating that ripple effect.
It's recognizing that we can all do something to create a more supportive and caring world, where every child can heal and thrive. So as we finish up this deep dive, I want you to think about this. Kirabo's story is about how strong the human spirit is, but it's also a call to action. We can't just be inspired, we need to actually do something to make a difference.
I couldn't agree more. Let's keep talking about this. Let's push for change. Let's make a world where stories like Kirabo's, while always inspiring, are less about overcoming terrible things and more about celebrating the strength we all have inside us.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope this has sparked something in you to learn more, to do something, and to help create a better future for these children.